Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Van Jones. I work at CNN. I also work at a place called the Reform Alliance. And I just want to welcome you to Student Speak. This is a National Assembly for Unprecedented Times. It's being hosted by the Robertson Center for Success Academy. Now, I know you guys are going through a lot, and you have 1,000 questions and also 1,000 things to say about what's going on in this kind of unprecedented moment that we're in. And we know that young people have a unique perspective, a unique set of questions. We wanted to get everybody together to begin the process of educating each other, empowering each other. And you're going to hear from some really extraordinary people, both grown folk like myself, but also some young people as well. I want to give you a little bit of instruction before I start to introduce people and bring people on. If you are joining us on Blue Jeans today, you can chat your questions directly into the Q&A. So that's the way that you can do it. You'll see the chat box right there, I think, to your right. If you're joining us on Facebook, what we want you to do is to type your questions into the comment box using the hashtag StudentsSpeak, hashtag StudentsSpeak. And that way we'll get a chance to hear your questions. We're going to get through as many questions as we can. And students, I want to encourage you to respond to each other's questions if you got insights to share as we go. And if you're grown up, I'm going to ask you, let the students ask the questions. We have a lot of ways as grown folks to get our questions asked. We want this to be something that the students are taking advantage of, though we're very, very happy to have you. I also want to note that our friends at the Robertson Center and Success Academy are going to stay on Facebook for about 30 minutes after this to continue taking questions and hearing from you. So lots of ways to participate, both through Blue Jeans and through Facebook. I'm super glad to be here. Somebody who works in the news media, I know how much information is to be shared. And today, you've got great people to help share some of the information. I want to introduce the panel. You'll see that we've got Dan Rojas here. He is a native of the Bronx. He's also a principal of the Success Academy High School of the Liberal Arts in New York City. So Dan Rojas is here. We've also got Stephen Powell. He's the Chief Programs and Partnership Officer at the National CARES Mentoring Movement. And last but certainly not least, we've got two students with us, and they're going to have to do a lot of heavy lifting today, and they're prepared to do so. One is Mariana. She's in the 8th grade at the Success Academy in Harlem at North Central, and we've also got Joseph Duncan. He's in the 7th grade at Success Academy Harlem East. And so to get things started, I want to ask Joseph a question. And so maybe start with the student perspective. Joseph, can you tell us about what it's like going to school from your house, from your home? What does your day look like every day, Joseph?
Yeah, I mean, my day usually I would just wake up an hour before school. I would get ready, brush my teeth, get ready, and get all the things that I need. Put on some clothes and get some breakfast. And by then, usually the advisory meeting would begin. So I would do the advisory meeting and if my
Hello? Good. Okay, I'm sorry. A little bit of echo there, so I apologize for that. Well, good. Well, I know it's been a little bit disruptive sometimes, but I'm sure you're learning the best you can. I want to move to the video presentation. We've got some pre-submitted questions from the young people. Let's hear the first video question.
I'm Ann Heavers. I'm a 5th grader in Washington, D.C., and my question is, when will schools open again, and will this year count like other years?
Good question. I think we should let Mr. Dan Rojas answer that one.
Great question. Question that some of our adults have as well. And to be honest, we don't know much yet. We won't go back until it is safe for us. And because of this ambiguity, it's really, really important that you students invest in your learning now to ensure that when we finally do open, whenever that is, we are ready to go. As for your second question, all schools believe in the continuity of learning. These are unprecedented times, and we understand that this is new and challenging for everyone. And many schools are making some accommodations to our assessment of high school and college readiness. But really, that should not be your driver in how you interact with the work. You should appreciate that your destiny is still in your own hands. And again, you want to be as ready as you possibly can be for when we do return to school.
So, and when you just so I can be clear, because I'm sure that for the young people, they're concerned about will their work count and that kind of stuff. You're saying you're not sure exactly how it counts, but people should be doing it anyway.
I mean, it will count for sure. I think what my last point was that there are likely going to be some accommodations that schools are looking at. New York State just canceled the Regents exams. And, obviously that is very important for our middle school and high school kids. And so there are certain accommodations that the school is making. But the work that you are doing now matters. It counts. You should do it. And obviously reach out to your advisors or your school leadership if you have specific questions about what next year is going to look like. But the work counts.
Let's talk. That's great. But let's hear from one of the students. Mariana, does this feel like a regular school year to you? I mean, what's on your mind? You're getting ready to finish out middle school, move on to high school. What's on your mind these days?
It's not exactly the same thing as it would be if you were at school, but it's just as beneficial, and it's a good opportunity because in the future, not all of our classes are going to be in person, especially for kids that are going to high school now and going to graduate later. Not all of our classes are going to be in person, so I think it's a good opportunity, and it's still as beneficial. And so I think it's not only a new opportunity for us, but it's a new way to learn how to do new things because not everything will be in school. And I think I'm happy that I have this opportunity because I still need to get my education, and it's still happening even during a crisis.
That's good. You got a great attitude about it. Let's get some more questions in. Let's get to the second video question from a young person.
Good morning, Mr. Jones. My name is Rihanna McKenzie. I go to S.I. Davis Park Middle School. I live in Brooklyn, New York, and I'm in grade 6. I hope you are doing well in quarantine and staying safe and enjoy answering my question. My question is, why are most African Americans being severely impacted by this pandemic, also known as the coronavirus? As I've seen on the news, 70% of African Americans are being impacted by the coronavirus, and I want to know why. I know how people get it, and I know how to stay away from it. Basically, from what I've known from history, is you should wash your hands at all times, wear a face mask at all times if you're going outside, stay at home, but wash your hands for 20 seconds, and use hand sanitizer if needed. But I also know some people are getting it because they have sickness or illness from before this pandemic has been gone globally. So I hope you enjoy answering my question. Thank you. Have a great day.
That's great. That's actually a very interesting question and a perceptive question. I want to take a crack at it, and I'll let somebody else take a crack at it. So, the numbers are actually interesting. It's not that 70% of the people who are getting the virus are African American. It's that in some cities, 70% of the people who are dying from the virus are African American. So it's spreading pretty uniformly, but the people who are getting, who actually are dying, are disproportionately black. You think to yourself, is this a racist virus? This virus does not like black people. What's wrong with this virus? That's not what's going on. What's going on is this virus kills people who have underlying sicknesses, underlying bad health, and African Americans, all too often, there's already been an epidemic of some bad health in our communities. So African Americans have too much hypertension or high blood pressure. if somebody in your family that has high blood pressure takes pills for high blood pressure, they have to be especially careful. We have too much diabetes, also asthma, also obesity. So those underlying conditions mean when the virus jumps on you, if you have any of those, you're going to have a much tougher time. And you may say, well, why do African Americans and some Latinos and some Native Americans have those underlying health issues worse than others? Well, that's a long conversation, but what it comes down to is our healthcare system doesn't treat everyone the same. Some neighborhoods have good doctors and good hospitals, and everybody has health insurance. Other neighborhoods, not so much. So when you don't have the access to good doctors and good food and those kind of opportunities, you tend to get sicker. I have hypertension myself. I have high blood pressure myself. And so these underlying problems that we've been concerned about for so long now becomes especially serious when this virus comes around that particularly jumps on people or takes people out who have those underlying conditions. And so it's not, so you should know as a young person, it's not, just your great-great-grandmother who could, have a problem, maybe even your uncle who's in, his 30s or 40s. If he has to take a pill every day, or if your aunt has to take a pill every day, encourage them to be especially careful, because if you take a pill every day, that means you have an underlying health condition that could be important, or could be dangerous in the age of the virus. However, you were correct that you should be washing your hands a bunch. If your hands are not ashy, you're not washing them enough. That's my view. But maybe others on the panel have a more sophisticated view. Anybody want to add to what I just said?
I definitely want to add. I mean, one of the answers is simply that poverty was a crisis before COVID. And what we're seeing now are just the disparities in access to equitable healthcare, testing. Even for some of our young people that are now at home, they don't have access to technology. So to note that poverty has been an underlying issue with regard to those that are trying to be tested or having those underlying issues is critical. But we don't want our young people to feel powerless in this situation. I think it's a perfect opportunity for many of you to exercise your civic muscle, recognize that there is power in local elections. In your households, continue to have conversations around civics, and don't remove yourself from the front lines advocating for these critical things just because you're at home.
Wonderful. And Dr. Powell's at National Cares, so he cares a lot, cares about the nation a lot, and knows a lot. So we're glad to have you as a part of this whole conversation. I wonder if we can go to our third video question from a young person.
Hi, my name is Sayusar. I go to Success Academy, Bed-Stuy Middle School. My advisory is Michigan, and my question is that is it true that the virus only affects older adults, or are children at risk as well? Thank you.
I like that university a lot. And he does pediatrics at the Yale School of Medicine. Dr. Thomas Murray, you with us?
Hi, I'm here. Can you hear me okay?
Yes. Yes, we can, sir.
Great. I didn't see the video. Did it pop up?
I'll tell you. I think it did. I'll tell you what the question's about. A lot of young people, they hear that the virus affects exclusively very, very old people, and I think they're wondering, what about young people? Are children at risk? And if so, how? How do you think about being a pediatrician, which means the doctor for young people? How do you see this virus affecting young people and children?
Yeah, great. Thank you. That's a great question. Fortunately, most of the information from around the world, whether it's China or Italy or New York or Seattle, really shows that most children are less affected than adults. They tend to have milder disease than than the adults. However, there are some children, especially teenagers, who can have some of the underlying other medical problems like you described for adults that are at risk for being hospitalized and getting more severe disease. So the follow-up question that comes then, if kids aren't getting as sick as adults, why are we closing schools and kind of restricting who they interact with and play with and things like that? And the reason for that is because when the kids get sick, they can have milder disease, but then still spread it.
I go to Success Academy.
Now I'm seeing the
Wait,
video.
hold on. I'm hearing some interference there.
Yeah, sorry
Right,
about that. That was the video was finally popping up on my screen. Yeah.
And my question is that is it true that the
hold on,
virus
let
only
it play out.
Okay.
advisory is Michigan? And my question is that is it true that the virus older adults?
Oh,
All right. Sorry about that. So
no
what
problem.
I was saying is that even though the children tend to get milder disease, they are at risk for spreading it to some of those people that you described with underlying conditions. So that's why the earlier question, that individual who mentioned, when she mentioned washing hands, and that was just great, and how informed she was, and that's what we encourage all the kids to do. And unfortunately, by being quarantined, by staying home, by not going out with your friends and playing, you can prevent the spread of the disease, and it really is making a difference. So by doing those things, we are flattening the curve, and you might not feel like you're doing anything because you're stuck at home and you have to do school from home, but you really are making a big difference in preventing the spread of this disease to some older adults and some other children who have underlying health problems to keep them from being in the hospital.
You know, it's very useful what you're saying. You know, I wonder about young people, you know, who do have sort of, you know, multiple risk factors themselves. Because, for instance, you know, there's an African American student who's got asthma and is maybe concerned about how does this affect her. How do you think about somebody who is a young person, but they do have an underlying condition, say like asthma?
Yeah, so that's again, the good news is that when you look at the number of adults that have been hospitalized, the number of children that have been hospitalized has really been substantially less, especially less than 10 years of age. The older kids, it's a little bit different. We've seen a few of those children hospitalized, and most of the kids that we've seen hospitalized have had some sort of underlying condition. So if you do have asthma, or you do take a pill for something, or there's some problem with your immune system that you know about, you have to be really extra careful and really wear that mask when you go out in public and really wash your hands. And if you see someone who's sick, really try to stay away from them as much as you possibly can.
Okay. Well, you know, let's just let the young people weigh in here. So, you know, Joseph and Mariana, like, what's been the most challenging part for you about being separated from all your friends? You know, and how do you maintain connection? I know you can learn from home, but it's hard to, you know, play from home, at least in a physical sense. How are you maintaining connection? How do you feel about this whole situation?
Yeah, it's very difficult because every day we're used to going to school and seeing our classmates, talking to them, telling them about our day, and all of a sudden now we're just stuck in our houses, just doing remote learning. I feel like if you have like really close friends, you know you'll have communications with them. You can talk to them through your phone. You can FaceTime. You can go and do all. There are so many resources that can allow us to have communications with our friends in school, and that can help us feel more connected even through remote learning.
Mariana?
Me and my friends, like we still talk a lot, and so I feel like just because the virus is happening, we still communicate with each other because we're such good friends. And I don't think that the virus should stop you from communicating with your friends, because especially during this time, it's important to communicate with people around you and people who care about you. So I think it's really important that you maintain communication with your friends, and I think there's multiple ways to do that. The way Joseph said, you can talk to them over your phone. Me and my friends use Hangouts, so I think there's a good amount of ways to communicate with your friends, and it's really important too.
Yeah, I've got a teenage son and a preteen son, and they just play video games and talk to each other on the FaceTime the whole time. That I don't even think they realize that they're not leaving the house half the time because they're so virtual anyway. But let's get to another question. One question I know has been coming up a lot is, how can kids actually support their family and help other people at the same time keeping themselves safe? Kids are going to want to stay safe. They also want to help out. Anybody on the panel, like how do you young people think about that, and how do some of the adults think about that on the panel?
I'll jump in. One thing I will say is to start locally, find out what's happening locally in your community. There are many nonprofits and health serving organizations that are at capacity right now in delivery of service. I would also say do your homework. Find out who's already doing the work. There's going to be a lot of scams that may pop up in this situation, but find out who's already doing the work and try to contribute there. And then also recognize that giving is not just about giving money. You also can give your time, wellness check-ins with your friends to make sure that they're doing fine. And one of the things that we've also suggested is that we just continue to model the importance of having strong human spirit and not being defeated during this moment. I've heard many people say, oh, 2020 is a wash, but perhaps 2020 is an opportunity for us to just reimagine what it means to just rededicate ourselves to humanity and have a better vision for how we work with one another.
All right. How other people handle that question in terms of how you keep yourself safe but also give back?
I think it's important for our kids to know the power that you have with your parents, and reminding them that when they go out to get groceries, when they come back, wash their hands if that's not the first thing that they're doing. They will listen to you guys and understand that this is tough for you guys, but this is also tough for the adults and your parents, and there's a lot that they're thinking about, and they might forget those things that our young panelists are speaking so eloquently about. So remind your parents they don't have to go out. Don't go out. When they come back, turn the water on for them and make sure they wash their hands.
Mariana? Oh, wait, she's muted.
It's important now
You're muted.
that you spend a lot.
Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Go ahead. Yes.
Okay. I think it's important that you spend time with your family now, especially because when you're at home, there's really nobody else to hang around. So you should really spend a lot of time with your family instead of isolating yourself from your family because you already can't talk to the people outside. So I think family time is important during a crisis like this.
Joseph, what do you think?
Yeah, I feel like staying positive and hanging out with your family is a really good way to not feel defeated, and it's a way to even also help your family because you can always make sure that your families and yourself included are staying safe by washing your hands, doing all the things needed so that you can stay sanitary. And I feel like in order to not feel defeated, you need to have conversations with people that you know and people that you feel connected to.
Great. Let me push ahead with a few more of the questions. There's one question: is it possible for the flu vaccine to address this? In other words, people get vaccines all the time for stuff. They get vaccines for the flu every year. Why can't we just use the flu vaccine to knock out COVID? Maybe Tom can answer that one.
Yeah, that's a great question. The flu vaccine is specifically designed just for the flu, so unfortunately it's not going to work against COVID. They are working very hard to develop a vaccine specifically for COVID, and I think eventually we will have one. Unfortunately, they need to really make sure that it's safe for everyone to get it, so that takes some time. But with the flu season coming in the fall, it will be really important for everyone to get that flu vaccine as well, because if flu and the COVID virus are around at the same time, that can be difficult for hospitals. So it will be really important for everyone to get that flu vaccine, and hopefully in the next couple of years, we'll also have the COVID vaccine.
That's great. Somebody asked me a question: how I personally adjusted to the whole situation. Well, I live bi-coastally. In other words, I have a place to live in New York, where I'm working for the Reform Alliance and CNN. but I also have a place to live here in Los Angeles, where my kids live and my ex-wife and still best friend live. And usually I'm flying back and forth every week. I'm in New York, I'm in LA, I'm in New York, I'm in LA. I'm always in a plane, I'm always in a car, I'm always in an Uber, I'm always in a hotel someplace. But for the past 4 weeks, I've only been in Los Angeles. I left New York, I flew out here. I live about a block away from my kids, and so I've just been here. I don't think I've been I don't think I've gone this long not being on a plane since I was probably in high school, and I've been out of high school for a very long time. So I have not spent. I thought I was going to spend all this time with my kids. All they want to do is just talk to each other and be on the phone and be on these different video games. So I'm going to tell them that Mariana said they got to spend more time with me, which I would like quite a bit. So that's how I've been dealing with it. I want to get through as many questions as possible, though. So one says, I'm a Muslim student, and I wonder, when am I going to be able to go back to the mosque? How can we celebrate holidays when we are apart? Anybody want to jump on that one? I'm gonna maybe call on Stephen. How do you think about that? Those kind of questions.
Yeah, I would say just continue to try to celebrate virtually. There are many institutions that have shifted to celebrating religious ceremonies, rites of passages, and other things virtually. We've seen quite a few birthday parties being held virtually. And the reality is that we know that a lot of our young people are suffering from just separation anxiety as well as the adults. And a part of this is just trying to maintain a positive attitude, instilling a practice of gratitude, reframing and shifting the narrative. So one person could say, "Hey, I'm stuck at home," but if you change one word in that and say, "I'm safe at home," it changes the narrative. So just trying to remain positive and have those conversations or community building virtually.
Um, what do other people think about that? Our lives have been disrupted. People like to go to church, mosque, synagogue, temple, not able to do that. How do you guys think about good ways to respond to that and to adapt to that?
And I'll say my faith community has been having virtual church. So, and I know that there are many others that have, and that's certainly another option to remain in community.
Yeah, for me, I feel like this is a really good opportunity to use online resources. So, a lot of people say, I want to go to church. It's like, well, we can pray at home. We can read our Bible at home. We can read scripture at home, and we can do that, with our loved ones and take it deeper. There's also, you can go on YouTube. There are podcasts that allow people to get even more educated. So when you go back to church, when you go back to your synagogue, when you go back to your mosque or your temple, you're actually more educated. You're actually, further ahead. And, I think that's something that people should consider. You also can, through something called Zoom, you can also, and also you can do it on FaceTime as well. You can create your own kind of, opportunities to get together. You could, on Sunday, you could get together with, or whatever day is holy to you, or Sabbath to you. You can get your own friends together. You can have those discussions. So great opportunity to be innovative, to learn even more. So when we do go back to life as normal, we can be ahead of the game. Anybody else want to add to that?
Yeah, I would also add that as you do shift to these online platforms, and I'm just sharing this because the National Cares Mentoring Movement has been doing a lot of community building conversations through our community wellness circles that we host every Thursday night at 8 p.m. for the adults in our community. Just make sure that you're leveraging resources to have a safe conversation where it doesn't get disrupted. And I'm just saying this as we've recently experienced having a Zoom bombing incident where somebody came in and disrupted. So we had to put in preventive features to make sure that didn't happen. So certainly these are spaces that are built and designed to be better in mind, body, and spirit. So anytime you can prevent disruption, that is helpful.
Cool. So last question. This probably appeals to everybody who's paying attention to this broadcast. My parents seem really stressed out. My parents are stressed out Somebody says, what should I do as a young person seeing my parents so stressed out? So I think we're going to end with the young people to see what their advice is. But we're just going to give everybody a chance to close out, maybe starting with you, Dan Rojas. What do you hope that young people are doing knowing their parents are stressed out?
I mean, I think Mariana gave us great advice. You young people are the greatest gift to your parents, and they love you unconditionally. If you just spend time with them, show them that you love them and appreciate them, help a little bit more around the house, I know that they will greatly appreciate that.
Tom, you want to add to that?
Yeah, I would agree, and I would just remind everybody, as you mentioned earlier, there is a normalcy coming soon, and it comes differently to different parts of the country. And so I would encourage all the young people out there to remain optimistic, to remind their parents that we're all going to get through this. They need to hear that from everybody, because we are, and we're going to come out of it different, but it can be better for many of the reasons that people have discussed.
Stephen Powell?
You know, in our household, we've actually flipped COVID into an acronym that stands for Claiming Our Victories in Detail. So we've really been looking at positive ways to just think about how we can mind our tone, exercise gratitude, mindfulness, making sure that we're getting proper sleep. And I'll say that even as a parent, I've told my daughters many times, please stop doing backflips because we can't afford a trip to the emergency room right now. So, you know, naming that anxiety exists, but just making sure that we're very mindful about how we communicate with one another in tone and in behavior.
Mariana?
Like I said, you should spend more time with your family, especially your parents if they're really stressed about the virus. And you should just make sure that you tell them that you love them every single day because they're really stressed and they need to know that you love them. So say it every day when you wake up, when you go to bed throughout the day. Make sure your parents know that you love them and help them around the house and just be grateful that your parents are with you.
And Joseph?
Yeah, I completely agree. I feel like family is one of the strongest bonds there is. So having that connection and being there for your family members is a way to make sure that everyone is staying positive and not feeling defeated. So telling your parents every day, "Mom, Dad, I love you so much. Thank you for everything." It's a motivator. It's a motivator for them as well as a motivator for yourself.
That's good. And I'll say this. Quit fighting about everything. You know, I know y'all on top of each other, stuff like that, but when y'all be fighting, it just makes it worse.
Hey all, it looks like we had a little bit of a technical issue with some of our panelists here, but just wanted to thank everyone for joining the session today. Great to see so many folks tuned in. I know it's a really difficult time, but definitely keep joining us on the conversation. We're going to keep this going on Facebook. If you want to check us out on Success Academy's Facebook page, we'll be there. We'll keep answering questions. We hope that you will keep asking them. Thank you all so much for joining us. Stay safe, and we'll look forward to talking to you soon. Have a good day.